I hope I didn't give you any secondhand smoke carcinogens over the internet, digitally. Hawks of America, Bank Shot Earth #1, the June 25th, 2017. Anti-political violence, rally and counter-protest. What is the anti-political violence rally? Essentially, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to the leftist methodology of protesting speech and gatherings that they don't like, namely through the means of intimidation and violence. The rally tomorrow in Washington, D.C., I believe at the Lincoln Memorial, is designed as a point of focus for members of the right political party to express and to condemn the methods of the left. Some see the holding of these rallies, and when I say some, I mean those on the left, as being provocation for entering battle in the streets. Now, I'm just not talking about your mainstream liberal, left-leaning, progressive individual out there. We're talking of a more organized movement that goes by the name anti-fascista or anti-fascist. At this point, it would probably be a good idea to discuss how to actually say the shorter version of their name, which is just spelled A-N-T-I-F-A. Looking at this shorter version of the word, one would think that you could just say Antifa. But there are many out there who pronounce it Antifa. Now, if we take the entire name of the group, anti-fascista, we notice that the word fascista, based on fascist, has an A sound in it. Fascist. So, all things being equal, maybe we should just call them Antifa. 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 I think that I will call them Antifa. So anyway, the Antifa, who like to cause riot, break windows, damage property, hurt people, in their crying out against free speech, in their crying out against the more conservative members of the right-leaning political parties, they feel justified in their actions. Tomorrow it's expected that they are going to be holding a counter-protest of their own in Washington, D.C., at one of the police stations close to where the anti-political violence rally is being held. This, I think, is just a sleight of hand maneuver. I think they're doing this to distract the police so that a larger and more invasive operation can be done at the rally itself. I really don't have any evidence to base this on, but I think that's a pretty sound, strategic idea for them to pursue. And of course, if I've thought it, of course others have already thought it. I'm just bringing it out into the open. Not giving anybody ideas or saying this is actually going to happen, that's actually going to happen. I'm just taking the information that I've gathered and put it together. I think that the protest at the police station is a fake. And I think there's going to be a larger happening at the rally itself. Some may say that the right holding these rallies for free speech and rallies for basically pushing forward their own agenda is nothing but provocation to the left. From a certain perspective, that may be true. From a different perspective, and I believe the correct perspective, that it's actually a method to keep the campaign rally spirit alive, which I believe is so very important in the current political violence. Was that a Freudian slip? I don't know. I'll have a sugarless shot of lemon drop. Just get me past that one. I believe that it is a correct methodology to keep the campaign spirit alive in the current political climate, which is very anti-right. From the news media, the mainstream news media, to the colleges and universities, and even all the way down into the high schools, junior highs, middle schools, and even into the grade schools, which is maybe a topic that I'll get into later, but I have firsthand evidence of it even reaching down into the upper grades of grade schools. So, it's a very hostile political climate. And the only way for those on the more conservative right and the center right to keep their idea and their ideas moving forward in this environment is to keep up the campaign spirit by holding rallies, by giving talks, and by essentially opening themselves up to the leftist violence, which, in its own way, strategically speaking, from the right's perspective, only makes the left more aggressive by holding more and more rallies and giving more and more opportunities to the anti-fa on the left to cause more destruction, to cause more violence, to cause more situations, to put themselves into a bad light that perhaps the mainstream media will not cover, but that those who get their news by other sources, be it YouTube, alternate news agencies, Twitter, any other social media platform, may see them for who they really are. As a poster that I believe was hung in San Francisco, or was it Berkeley, recently, pretty much summed it all up. When fascism comes to the United States, it will be under the guise of anti-fascism, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. These anti-fa people who don't like a particular form of speech, they don't like a particular idea, go out of their way to at least shout down the performer of that public speech or idea, or to deplatform them, or to cause enough chaos and violence in the immediate area so that it is impossible for those with the ideas and speech that they don't like to hold a peaceful rally or talk, seminar, what have you. This is the epitome of anti-Americanism, which prides itself on free speech. Beyond this, beyond that, is the question, is there a better way for both sides to handle this? One of the things that Hawks of America espouses is an idea called chaos conservatism. What exactly is chaos conservatism? Chaos conservatism is nothing less than the philosophy of conservatism doing whatever it needs to do to hold the line at the center of all political divisions in the United States, and thereby slowing down the rapidity of progress of the left while keeping the sane ideas from the same left moving forward at a sane pace. Nobody wants society, American society, to be static. We're always moving forward. We can't help that. We move forward in time. I'll get into time travel and all of those things at different time. But essentially, progress is good. Evolution of society is good. However, it must be with a well-reasoned pace that takes into respect all parts of society. One of the things that the left does not understand is that the very institutions, the very organizations, the very people that they are fighting at this time are the ones that protect the very freedoms of the liberties that they take to hold their rallies and to hold their counter protests and to give them the free speech to do the things that they do. If this were some other country, say a more fascistic or authoritarian country, they wouldn't have those freedoms. They would get on the streets, go do something, and they'd be stamped down without a second thought by the government regime. Try it in Saudi Arabia. Try it in Pakistan. Try it in Turkey. Hell, try it in Nazi Germany if you're a time traveler and would like to look back in history and see what would happen to it then. Of course, during the Nazi regime and not when it was just getting started in the brown shirts, the brown shirt fascists were going to opposing ideological rallies and trying to silence them by violence and threats. Anyway, I digress. Is there a better way to handle this? Of course there is. Is the time for it now? Of course it's not. We've seen far too much damage to our political system by the left this last campaign season. And the right at this time is correct in doing what they're doing, holding the campaign spirit alive while pushing forward their ideas for what America is and how they intend to save it from descending into the progressive left liberal destruction of society. Of course, no extreme is perfect. No one side of the argument taken to the extreme is perfect. But there is a center. And it's that center that must hold in order for society to progress while respecting all of its citizens for who they are, what they do to accomplish their own form of happiness. So what could be the better way? I don't have absolute answers. I don't think anybody does. I think it's going to be a synthesis after our current period of time is over with. One of the things that I see that could happen is if, as in presidential debates, we can get the big players of both sides together on a stage and to hold respectful debates and to get the conversation absolutely out into the open. It could be like a sports game of politics. Everyone accepts a certain small set of rules to be respectful, to not have any protesters at the debate. Let's say all of the moderators are chosen, elected by their own sides to hand out the questions and to have a debate, a forum, a respectful forum, to put the very heart of their ideas out into the midst of the public mind. Ideally, this could happen at the universities, but as we've seen from the universities lately, they're not very accommodating to having members of the right on their campuses at this point to push forward their ideas. So I don't think that that is the place that these possible debates could take place. The places that they should take place would be on federal property. It could be at a monument in Washington, D.C. It could be at a federal land reserve park. Hell, let's go to Yellowstone and have a debate, guys. The left can go ahead and take their buses and, however they want to get there, and, we'll drive our cars. Fly our helicopters in and, airplanes. You guys can caravan there, maybe with fish, or whoever. And, we'll caravan in our own way. Probably with a motorcycle brigade escort. But that's beside the point. It has to happen on federal property where free speech is preserved and protected. Now, a word to the right and the recent events that have unfolded, according to some out there whose idea it is to adopt the methods of the left, to basically give them a taste of their own medicine. Basically saying, well, if you're going to storm our stages or try to deplatform us, take away our advertising revenue, etc., well, then we're going to do the same thing to you using your very same methods and see how you like it. And we're going to play that game until somebody cries uncle. And of course, the right being stronger than the left, we all know who's going to cry uncle first. Is this a good method? No, I don't think it is. To an extent, perhaps, just to give them a dose of their own medicine. So that we can always point back and say, hey, how did you like that? And then, of course, no matter what they say in the present, whenever we ask that question, we can always point back to the media that came about from when we gave them that dose of their own medicine. Like what happened in the Shakespeare in the Park play, or what have you. But that's only good up to a point. And I think that it's very relevant to keep in mind the quote from Friedrich Nietzsche from his Beyond Good and Evil treatise, I believe, which essentially said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And he who looks into the abyss stares back into," or something of that nature. Something very close to that nature. But this is a key point to keep in mind. That even though you must know thy enemy, according to every doctrine of war ever created, all the way back to the art of war, you must know and understand your enemy in order to defeat them. But there is a point where if you go so far into their technique to adopt their own methods to destroy them, you become them. And that is not something that the right should be willing to take upon themselves. So I say, while it's good to give them a dose of their own medicine, it's not good to do it too often or too much.